Rain was coming down so hard it felt like the sky was trying to erase the city. Soraya Lane tasted metal and panic as she stood at the curb, clutching the phone pressed to her ear. The clinic nurse on the other end was still talking, voice tinny and calm in a way that made Soraya feel like she might scream. "We'll need you to come back in tomorrow to confirm, Miss Lane. But the blood work is very clear. Congratulations." A small body darted into the street. Soraya's head snapped up. A little Korean boy, no more than 5, stood in the middle of the crosswalk, rain flattening his dark hair to his forehead. He held a stuffed rabbit by one ear, staring blankly at the oncoming traffic like he couldn't see it at all. The phone slid from her fingers. Headlights surged toward him, far too fast. Horn, screech of tires, a smear of white light on wet asphalt. "Move!" she shouted, voice cracking. "Hey!" He didn't even flinch. For one wild second, Soraya saw 2 futures at once. One where she stayed on the curb, clutching the news about the tiny life inside her, and one where she ran. Her body chose for her. She bolted into the street, shoes slipping on paint slick with rain. The world narrowed to the boy's small, soaked figure and the roar of the car barreling toward them. Somewhere deep in her belly, something twisted hard enough to steal her breath. "If I misjudge this by a second, we all die," flashed through her mind, clear and cold. She hit the crosswalk and grabbed him, fingers digging into his thin shoulders. Up close, his eyes were wrong, too empty, like he was still somewhere else, trapped in some other storm. "I've got you!" she gasped, even though he couldn't understand her. "I've got you! I've got you!" She threw her weight sideways, heaving him out of the lane. For a heartbeat, time stretched. She felt him leave her arms, felt the unbelievable relief of his small body flying clear of the headlights. Then the car hit her. Impact tore through her like fire and ice all at once. Her lower body exploded in pain, the kind that didn't even feel human. The wet world spun, lights, sky, asphalt, before she slammed onto the ground. Air vanished from her lungs. Sound dropped into a low, distant roar. Somewhere ahead, the boy landed in a puddle and started to scream. Soraya tried to crawl toward him, but her legs wouldn't answer. Her hand scrabbled on the pavement, sliding through water that was already turning pink. She forced her fingers to her abdomen. Beneath her shaking palm, something fluttered. So tiny, so fast it could have been her imagination. The echo of a heartbeat that shouldn't have been in danger at all. The nurse's voice flickered back through her mind. "The blood work is very clear. Congratulations." No one here knew about that sentence, except her. No one would even know what she was losing. Voices shouted in Korean around her, panicked and muffled by the rain. Someone yelled for an ambulance. Someone else cried out a name, "Minho!" over and over, ragged with terror. Soraya's vision blurred at the edges. The boy's cries cut through everything, high and terrified, but alive. Good, she thought, clinging to that sound like it was the only thing keeping her conscious. He's loud. Loud means breathing. Breathing means he gets to grow up. Another sharp bolt of pain ripped through her middle, so intense it bent her mind in half. Black crept in from the corners of her sight. She wanted to scream that there were 2 of them, that the child in the street wasn't the only one that needed saving. But her mouth wouldn't form the words. Her hand was still pressed over her lower belly, fingers numb. Rain hammered her face, washing away the warmth on her skin faster than it could pool. If someone has to pay for this, she thought dimly, the world shrinking down to the pounding in her ears. Let it be me. Just not the kids, not the kids. Through the haze, she caught a last fractured impression. Polished dress shoes splashing through the water, a tall shadow dropping to its knees beside the boy, a man's voice cracking in a way rich men's voices usually didn't. Then the sound of Minho's sobbing faded, swallowed by the wail of the approaching siren. Soraya's fingers slipped from her stomach. The city, the rain, the two tiny heartbeats she tried to protect, all of it vanished into dark. Chapter 1. The Interview on the Cliff. 2 years later, Seoul didn't feel any less loud. Soraya was just better at pretending the noise couldn't touch her. She sat in the corner of a tiny coffee shop that smelled like burnt espresso and sugar, her back to the wall, a chipped mug cooling beside her. Outside the rain-streaked window, the city pulsed. Taxis, umbrellas, neon signs already winking on, even though it was barely afternoon. Her phone lay face up on the table, her balance so low it made her want to laugh and cry at the same time. Keon arrived late and worried, which was his usual entrance. Between jokes and complaints about his students, he dragged the truth out of her. No job, rent due in 2 days, visa under review, in a way that meant almost certainly rejected. When the listing for a live-in housekeeper flashed onto her screen, it felt less like an opportunity and more like a dare. A private cliffside residence, high salary, discretion required, childcare, immediate start. Too good, Keon muttered. That's rich people crime money. Rich people crime money still pays rent, she said. She filled in the form, skipping past the question about legal incidents and accidents with a lie that made her stomach twist. No major incidents. Healthy. Comfortable with responsibility. The reply came faster than felt normal. Shortlisted. Interview at 6. Don't share the location. The pin sat on the far edge of the city where the road ran into ocean and wealth. By 6, she was standing at black iron gates that opened on silent hinges, walking a long drive toward a glass and stone mansion, looking out over the dark sea. Madame Choi met her at the door with a spine like a ruler, and rules like commandments. No photos, no guests, no third floor. In the playroom, she met Minho. He was smaller than the boy in her nightmares and somehow exactly the same. Black hair in his eyes, t-shirt slipping off one narrow shoulder, hands steady as he stacked blocks into a careful wall. It's not a tower, he corrected her gently. It's a wall, to keep the sea out when it gets mad. She crouched, ignoring the way her knees protested. Does it work? Sometimes. He gave her a single block, like a test. Build something. She did, hands still shaking. She had no idea cameras watched from the corners, or that a man in another room was leaning closer to a screen, eyes sharpening as he recognized the woman who'd once bled all over a crosswalk for his son. No idea that this interview wasn't about whether she could clean. It was about whether she deserved the debt he thought he owed. Chapter 2. The Man Behind the Screens. On the top floor, the third floor Soraya wasn't allowed to touch, Taejun watched her on a wall of monitors. Up close, she looked younger than the medical report had implied. Early 20s. Hair pulled into a neat bun. Blazer that didn't quite fit. Her hands trembled when Minho spoke, but her voice didn't. She didn't flinch at the scars on the boy's arm, just shifted so he didn't notice her looking. Background check? He asked without turning. His assistant, Jinwoo, held a tablet like a shield. Name, Soraya Lane, Black American, Former exchange student. Visa overstay in progress. No criminal record. No lawsuits after the accident. No contact with the press. No known family here. And the hospital file? We confirmed it. Internal bleeding, emergency surgery, loss of pregnancy around 8 weeks. Jinwoo hesitated. She never came back for follow-ups. Probably couldn't pay. On screen, Minho handed Soraya another block. She put it where he told her, like the wall's placement mattered. You sure she doesn't know? Taejun asked quietly. She was unconscious when they told you. Jinwoo's voice softened for the first time. And you were not in a state to tell her yourself, Chairman. He remembered that night too well. Rain, blood, a tiny boy too still on a stretcher. He'd signed whatever the hospital put under his hands, eyes fixed on the pediatric ICU door. Soraya had been a blur of monitors and nurses somewhere down the hall. I'm not chairman here, he muttered. Not to her. On the screen, Soraya laughed at something Minho said. A small sound, surprised and warm. Minho's shoulders relaxed. For the first time in days, the boy looked like a child instead of a ghost. Taejun's jaw clenched. Gratitude tasted too close to guilt. We hire her, he said, on trial. And tell her who you are? Jinwoo asked. Taejun finally turned from the screens, eyes dark with a mix of resolve and something harder. No, he said. She doesn't need my name to do the job. I want to see how she acts when she thinks the person who owes her isn't watching. He told himself it was necessary. A test of character. Proof that she wasn't like everyone else who circled his money, smiling with their hands out. The truth, that he was terrified of standing in front of the woman whose baby had died for his son and hearing her ask why he'd taken so long, stayed buried right where he liked his secrets. Chapter 3. The Trial Period. Soraya moved in 2 days later. Her room was small but clean, tucked into the staff floor with 3 other doors that rarely opened. She unpacked her life in 20 minutes. 1 suitcase, a stack of thrift store clothes, a second-hand laptop, the ultrasound photo she slid into the back of the bedside drawer without looking directly at it. Minho watched from the doorway, half hiding behind the frame. You have less stuff than my backpack, he observed. Travelite, stay fast, she said. What are you doing up here? Is this a royal inspection? He shrugged and stepped inside. Halmione says I should meet new people so I don't grow up rude. Too late, she deadpanned. You already told me my hands shake. A shy grin tugged at his mouth. Life settled into a rhythm. Morning cartoons, tiny shoes tied in bad bows, attempts at Korean breakfast that came out lopsided but edible. Minho liked her American cereal, and stories about Cleveland winters that made him wrinkle his nose. She liked the way he gravitated toward her without even realizing he was doing it. Some nights, he woke up screaming. The first time it happened, she nearly tripped over her own feet, sprinting down the hall. He sat bolt upright in bed, sheets twisted around his legs, breath coming in sharp little gasps. The lights went off, he choked in Korean. The rain, the car, Appa. She didn't know all the words, but she knew the panic. Hey, Minho. She sat on the mattress, keeping a respectful distance. Look at me. His eyes darted around, unfocused. She took his hand and put it on her chest. You feel that? She asked in English, then repeated herself in clumsy Korean. Heart, boom, boom, still here. You're not in the street. He hiccuped. Hiccup turned into a sob, and then he collapsed against her like a snapped rubber band. She hesitated only a heartbeat before wrapping her arms around him. His small body shook against hers, breath hot and wet through her t-shirt. "It's okay," she murmured, slipping into the lullaby she used to hum to herself in that first awful week after the accident, when sleep felt like an enemy. "I've got you, baby. I've got you." The melody softened the air. Slowly, his breathing evened out. In the doorway, unseen, Taejun watched. He had come running at the first scream, but the sight of Minho curled into Soraya's side had frozen him in place. He recognized the song, faintly, from a hospital corridor and a half-conscious boy's room. On the monitor in the study later, he replayed the footage of her, sitting on the edge of the bed, face soft in the dim light. "Why didn't you look for me?" he asked the screen under his breath. "After what I owed you?" The screen, of course, had no answer. Chapter 4. A House with Rules. The mansion had rules that weren't written down. Soraya learned them by running into them face first. Rule 1, the third floor was forbidden. She tried the stairs once on laundry day, arms full of tiny t-shirts and socks that refused to stay paired. A soft mechanical beep sounded before she'd gone 3 steps. The lock light flashed red. "Staff have no business upstairs." Madame Choi's voice floated from behind her, calm as ever. Soraya nearly dropped the basket. She hadn't heard the older woman approach. "Right," Soraya said, backing down. "No third floor. Got it. Just me and my questionable folding skills down here." "The chairman values privacy," Madame Choi said. "If he wishes to see you, he will send for you." "Chairman." The word sat heavy in the air. "I thought the family wasn't here much," Soraya said carefully. "He is here more than you think," Madame Choi replied. "You simply do not see him." Which was a fancy way of saying, "You're being watched." Rule 2. Don't ask questions about the woman in the photographs that weren't there. The house had art, abstract lines, landscapes, the kind of pieces rich people pretended to understand. But there were no family pictures, no school photos, no wedding frames. Once, when Minho dozed off in front of a cartoon, Soraya caught a glimpse of something tucked behind a row of legal books in the library. A single picture frame, face down. She picked it up before her brain could say no. A couple in their 20s looked back at her. The man in a black suit, tie perfect, eyes serious. The woman on his arm, bright smile, long dark hair. Their fingers were intertwined like they'd forgotten how to stand separately. Before she could study their faces properly, a shadow fell over her hand. "Those are not for display," Madame Choi said quietly. Soraya set the frame back exactly where she found it, face down. "Sorry," she murmured. Rule 3. Never underestimate how much a child can see. That night, as she tucked Minho in, he traced the seam of her sleeve with one small finger. "Did you see Amma?" he asked, so softly she almost missed it. She froze. "In the photo?" He nodded. "Halmione hides it, but she forgets sometimes." Soraya sat on the edge of the bed. "She was pretty," she said honestly. "She smelled like oranges," Minho whispered, eyes on the ceiling. "And she laughed loud. People stared, but she didn't care." He swallowed. "Do you laugh loud?" "Sometimes," Soraya said. "Usually, when someone falls, but then says they're fine." A hesitant smile tugged at his mouth. "Appa doesn't laugh loud." "No?" "He used to." The words were matter-of-fact in a way that hurt more than tears. "Now he laughs in here." Minho tapped his own throat. "But it doesn't make sound." Soraya smoothed his hair back. "Then we'll just have to make extra noise for him, huh?" He considered this. then nodded, as if it were a deal they'd just signed. She turned the light off and left his door cracked open, the thin strip of light from the hall falling across his floor like a promise. Behind the walls, where she couldn't see, cameras blinked silently. Somewhere above her, on the forbidden third floor, a man paused a video of his son talking about orange-scented ghosts and silent laughter, and realized, with a jolt, that someone new had stepped into the empty spaces of his house without asking for permission. Chapter 5. The Man Called Tae. 3 weeks in, Soraya still hadn't met the mysterious owner of the house. She'd begun to think of him as a roomer with a bank account. Then one Tuesday evening, she walked into the living room and found a stranger sitting on the edge of the couch, tie loosened, jacket thrown carelessly over the armrest. He wasn't supposed to be beautiful. Men like him never were in her head. They were just cold and tall and expensive. But this man had the kind of face that made time stutter for a second. Sharp jaw, straight nose, dark hair pushed back from his forehead, a mouth that looked like it had forgotten how to smile, not like it had never known how. He turned at the sound of her footsteps. Their eyes locked. "Oh," she blurted, then immediately wanted to rewind her mouth. "Sorry, I thought this room was empty." "It was," he said. His voice was low, smooth, with a trace of something rough around the edges, like he didn't use it for small talk very often. "You must be Soraya." Her spine straightened. "Yes." "And you are?" "Just call me Tae," he said. Just Tae. As if that erased the quiet power that clung to him like a tailored coat. Before she could ask more, Minho barreled into the room, nearly skidding on the polished floor. "Appa!" The little boy crashed to a stop, eyes darting between them. Tae's gaze flicked to his son, then back to Soraya. A decision passed through his eyes in the space of a breath. "Remember the game we talked about?" he said in Korean, voice softening a fraction. "In front of other people, I'm Tae, not Appa. Okay?" Minho frowned. "Why?" "Because I said so." Minho's shoulders hunched, but he nodded. "Okay. Tae Samchon," he murmured, adding the honorific for uncle. The word felt wrong in the air. Soraya didn't know much Korean family etiquette, but she knew enough to hear the strain in it. She knelt to Minho's level. "You didn't tell me you had a cool uncle," she said lightly. "I feel betrayed." "I have a lot of secrets," Minho replied gravely, and Tae almost smiled. They ate together that night for the first time. The dining table was too large for 3 people. The distance between them filled with clinking cutlery and the soft hum of the air system. Soraya had cooked something that was half Korean, half American, and wholly experimental. "This might be a war crime," she warned as she set the dishes down. "But it's a loving war crime." Minho dug in without hesitation. Tae watched, skeptical. "You left the U.S. for this?" he asked after a few bites, gesturing vaguely, as if this included her apron, the house, the whole continent. "I left the U.S. to breathe," she said. "Breathing's expensive. This was cheaper. Most people who come here chasing money don't end up scrubbing other people's dishes. Most people with money forget who scrubbed them in the first place," she countered. Minho glanced between them, wide-eyed, like he was watching a tennis match, with very polite insults for balls. A corner of Ty's mouth twitched. "You always talk like that to your employers." "You're my employer?" She raised her brows, putting the pieces together. "So, you're the man in the very fancy glass box on the cliff." "I own the box," he said. "The cliff came with it." Must have been a buy one get one deal, she murmured. Minho choked on his water, laughing. Tae reached out automatically, hand landing gently on his son's back. The gesture was instinctive, protective, the kind of touch you didn't fake. For a moment, Soraya saw something unguarded in his face. Fear. Not of her, not of gossip, but of this small, breathing person who depended on him. Then it was gone, masked behind cool politeness. When Minho knocked over his glass a few minutes later, water spilling across the table, Tae's reaction was sharp, almost too sharp. "Be careful," he snapped. "You're not a baby." Minho flinched like he'd been slapped. His shoulders curled inward. "Hey," Soraya said quietly. She grabbed a towel and mopped up the mess in 3 efficient swipes. "It's water, not acid. Tables recover." Tae's eyes cut to her. She met his gaze, refusing to drop hers, even though her heart picked up speed. "Kids spill things," she said. "That's their job description." Silence stretched across the table. For a second, she wondered if she just fired herself. Then Minho snorted a tiny laugh. "I spill everything," he confessed. "See?" she said. "Expert." Tae looked between them. Something like frustration and reluctant respect, warring in his expression. He didn't apologize. But later, as she passed by the dining room, she saw him back at the table with Minho, carefully pouring water for the boy himself. He didn't say, "Be careful," that time. Chapter 6. Mira's Warning. The first time Soraya saw Seo Mirai, she understood what rich looked like when it was born that way. Mira arrived a week after Tae's first dinner appearance, announced only by the sound of heels clicking across the marble floor. She swept into the kitchen without waiting to be introduced. Cream coat over one arm, black dress hugging a body gym memberships cried over. "You must be the American," she said in flawless English, like it tasted a little sour. Soraya wiped her hands on a towel. "You must be very good at making entrances." Mira's smile didn't reach her eyes. "I'm Minho's aunt." She glanced around. "And this is my cousin's house. You're a guest here." Soraya thought about the laundry, the nights sitting up with a shaking 5-year-old, the grocery runs in the rain. "Pretty sure I crossed into employee territory a while ago." Mira ignored that. She watched Minho, who had appeared in the doorway and now clung to the frame, uncertain. "Minho ya," she said in Korean, voice turning honeyed. "Come give your aunt a hug." He shuffled over, shoulders tense. Her arms around him were careful but slightly stiff, like she was holding an expensive vase she didn't quite trust. "You're getting so big," she cooed. "You remember me, right?" He mumbled something noncommittal. His eyes drifted back to Soraya. Later, when Minho went outside with his tutor, Miri cornered Soraya by the sink. "You've made an impression," she said. "That's dangerous in this house." Soraya raised a brow. "For who?" "For you." Miri's gaze flicked up and down, taking in the cheap watch, the worn sneakers. "Girls like you think proximity changes your place. It doesn't. It just makes the fall louder when you are removed." "Girls like me?" Soraya echoed. "Foreign, poor, temporary." Mira tilted her head. "Whatever you're hoping this turns into, it won't. Men like Taejun don't end up with women who scrub their floors." "I'm not hoping it turns into anything," Soraya said evenly. "I'm hoping the kid stops waking up screaming." For a heartbeat, something vulnerable flashed across Mira's face. Regret? Grief? Then, sealed over. "You'll be gone in a month," she said. "If you're smart, you'll leave with your severance and your silence intact. She tapped the counter once with manicured fingers and walked away, heels ticking like a countdown clock. That night, Soraya lay awake in her narrow bed, Miri's words rolling around her head. Temporary. Maybe that was all she'd ever been in this country. A moving part in someone else's story, easily swapped out. The only person she'd ever been irreplaceable to had never taken a breath outside of her body. In the next room, Minho murmured in his sleep. She listened until his breathing evened out again before she let herself close her eyes. Chapter 7. Cracks in the Glass. Days blurred into weeks. The house stayed orderly. The people inside did not. Tae appeared more often now, sometimes late at night with his tie hanging loose, sometimes early in the morning in running clothes, a sheen of sweat on his throat. He watched quietly from doorways as Soraya coaxed Minho into eating vegetables or helped him trace Korean letters at the kitchen table. He asked Soraya small questions at first. "Do you like Seoul?" "It's loud," she said, "and smells like garlic and ambition." "What would you do if you weren't here?" "Sleep for a week," she answered. "Then maybe figure out who I am without a uniform." Gradually, the questions deepened. One night, after Minho finally settled from another nightmare, they ended up side by side on the living room couch, a cautious distance between them, city lights from far below, flickering on the ceiling. "You didn't tell the truth on your background form," Tae said quietly. Her spine stiffened. "Excuse me?" "No major incidents." His eyes stayed on the window. "You don't limp when it rains, but sometimes you touch your stomach like it hurts." She forced a laugh. "Everyone lies on job applications. I also said I'm proficient in Excel." "I know about the accident, Soraya." The room shrank. He still didn't look at her. A car, a storm, a boy in the street, a woman who pushed him out of the way, surgery, blood, a pregnancy that didn't survive. Her breath caught, sharp and painful. "You've been... what?" Her voice came out hoarse. "Running Google searches on my medical history for fun?" He finally turned to her. In his face, she saw none of the cold satisfaction she'd expected, only something rawer. "I was there," he said. "That night, for the second half, anyway." She stared. "You were?" "My son almost died in front of a hospital," he said, each word clipped. "I arrived in time to see him. I didn't arrive in time to see you." The world tilted sideways. "So, you knew?" she managed. "You knew I was pregnant?" "Yes." His jaw tightened. "You didn't seem aware. The doctors tried to tell you. You were not conscious enough to understand." Heat rushed to her face. Anger and shame and grief tangled together, too big for her ribs. "And you just kept that to yourself?" she demanded. "For 2 years?" "I was trying to keep my son breathing," he snapped back. "By the time the fog cleared, you were gone. No address, no number that still worked. So, you hired a private investigator." The bitter laugh surprised even her. "To find your son's bodyguard with the defective womb." His eyes flashed. "Is that what you think this is?" "What else would it be?" she shot back. "You owe me, right? That's what this whole thing is. A fancy apology wrapped in a paycheck." "No." The word came out low, almost a growl. "This started as a debt. It isn't one anymore." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees, hands clasped so tight the knuckles whitened. "I needed to know what kind of person saves a stranger's child and disappears without asking for anything," he said. "I needed to see if you were real, or if I'd imagined you." "And?" Her voice shook. Did I pass your little morality test? Yes, he said simply. You did. The admission stole whatever comeback she'd been building. Silence stretched between them, thick with things unsaid. Soraya's eyes burned. Do you know what it's like? She whispered. To feel something tear inside you and have nobody tell you what you lost? To wake up and just know something is missing, but not be allowed to see the file? His face crumpled just for a second. Yes, he said softly. I do. They sat like that until Minho coughed in his sleep and the spell broke. We can't do this, she said, standing too quickly. We can't sit here and trade trauma like we're bartering. He rose too, slower. What do you want from me, Soraya? Nothing, she said, even though it wasn't true. She wanted answers. She wanted to go back and change the crosswalk. She wanted to not feel her lost child's absence every time Minho fell asleep on her shoulder. And that, he murmured, more to himself than her, is exactly why I'm afraid of you. Chapter 8. Breaking Point. It didn't take Mira long to notice the shift. She saw it in the way Tae's gaze followed Soraya when she left a room, and in the way Minho's entire body relaxed when he heard her voice down the hall. She saw it in the board members' whispers about a foreign maid in the chairman's house, and the way investors' eyes sharpened at the hint of scandal. So she did what the SEO family always did when something threatened their image. She moved first. The call to immigration was short and polite. A concerned citizen had noticed a young woman working in a high-profile home while her visa status remained unclear. The edited security footage she sent to the board was even more efficient. Soraya and Tae on the couch, sitting too close. Soraya asleep in a chair by Minho's bed, while Tae stood in the doorway, watching her with an unreadable expression. No audio, no context. Rumors multiplied in the dark. Tae became the man distracted by an affair with his maid. Soraya became the grasping foreigner, aiming above her station. Minho became the fragile child at the center of adults' bad decisions. When Tai learned what Mira had done, he confronted her in a boardroom full of glass and suits. You put immigration on her, he said, voice low and lethal. I informed the proper authorities about a legal matter. She replied coolly. If she's clean, she has nothing to fear. She nearly died for my son. And you pay her, Miri said. Generously, I might add. You've done your part. Don't confuse penance with obsession, Taejun. Her gaze was sharp. The COs will not protect you if you choose this hill to die on. We buried enough for you the night of that accident. Don't make us unearth it. He walked out before he could say something that would scorch every bridge he had left. That night, he called Soraya to his study. She walked in with a dish towel still looped through her belt, hair in a messy bun, eyes tired from a day of playing human shield between Minho and his nightmares. You wanted to see me? She asked. He stood behind his desk, every inch the chairman now, suit immaculate, mask firmly in place. The air felt thicker in here, heavy with cologne and secrets. Your position is terminated, he said. The words sliced cleanly through the room. She blinked. What? You'll receive 6 months' pay and a plane ticket back to the U.S., he continued, voice flat. The driver will take you to the airport in the morning. It took her a second to process the syllables. When they landed, they hurt more than she expected. Did I do something wrong? She asked, hating the way the question sounded. No. Then why? Because the situation has become complicated. Complicated how? He looked away, just for a heartbeat, then back. I don't owe you an explanation. Your staff. The word burned. Staff. So, that's what I am, she said quietly. Good to know. He flinched almost imperceptibly but didn't take it back. For what it's worth, he added softer. You've been good for Minho. But not good for you, she said. Silence answered. She nodded once, as if they were negotiating a contract instead of ripping something invisible in half. I'll be ready, she said, and left before he could see the way her eyes shone. Outside the door, she let herself lean against the wall for exactly 3 breaths. Then she straightened and went to pack the little she owned. In the room across the hall, Minho slept. Without knowing the word goodbye, was already hanging over his bed like a storm cloud. Chapter 9. The Choice. Morning came too bright. Soraya's suitcase waited by the door, wheels turned toward the future she hadn't planned for. Her passport sat on top of it, mocking. She tried to leave without waking Minho. It was a pointless attempt. Kids like him felt departures in their bones. He caught her in the entryway, hair sticking up, face crumpled with sleep. Where are you going? He demanded, voice already trembling. On a trip, she said gently. I have to go home, Minho. This is your home, he argued, small hands curling into fists. You live here. Your room is here. Your toothbrush is here. Sometimes people have more than one home, she said, even though that had never felt true for her. And sometimes they have to leave one. He looked past her at Tae, who stood a few steps away, hands clasped behind his back like he was watching a business deal close. Make her stay, Minho said to him. You're the boss. Tae's throat worked. It's not that simple, Minho. It is, Minho cried, voice cracking. You make everyone do what you want. You yell and people listen. You yelled at the doctors. You yelled at the men with the papers. You yelled at the man who hit me. Why can't you yell now? His words hit the air like thrown stones. Soraya felt each one. Minho, Tae began. No. Tears spilled over. Everyone leaves. Halmione goes home. Oma went to heaven. You go to work. Now Sori Nuna is leaving too? I hate this house. I hate it. I hate it. He kicked the suitcase hard enough to knock it over, then bolted down the hall, shoulders shaking. The echo of his sobs lingered long after his footsteps faded. Soraya slowly righted the suitcase. Her hands trembled. This is why I have to go, Tae said, almost to himself. He's too attached. You are too necessary. Sorry for the inconvenience, she said quietly. I'll try not to be necessary next time. She picked up the suitcase handle, walked past him, and didn't look back. He watched her go, every instinct screaming to stop her. He did nothing. Cowardice, he thought later, tasted exactly like silence. Chapter 10. Truth on the Rooftop. Final chapter. The car didn't go to the airport. Soraya realized they weren't headed toward Incheon when the highway turnoff slid by, and the city center reappeared instead of disappearing. Wrong way, she told the driver. Orders, ma'am, he said nervously. Chairman Yoon asked me to take you to one more stop. Her stomach nodded. What kind of stop? He didn't answer. A few minutes later, they pulled up in front of a hospital she didn't recognize, but somehow already hated. Tae waited by the entrance, alone, hands in his coat pockets. Soraya stepped out of the car, cold air cutting through her sweater. If this is some last-minute medical clearance thing, I'm going to scream, she said. You fired me. You don't get a post-credits scene. He let that pass. Come with me, he said. No. He didn't plead. He simply said, quietly, "Please." The word shook her more than shouting would have. Against her better judgment, she followed him inside. They took an elevator up, then another one, then climbed a set of stairs to the roof. Wind hit them as the door opened, carrying the faint smell of salt and exhaust. He held out a thin folder. "This," he said, "is the report you were never given." Her fingers hovered over it. "You think waving paperwork at me fixes anything?" "No," he said. "I think not knowing has been killing you slowly, and I'm tired of watching that happen from the safety of my cameras." Something in his voice, tired, sharp, edged with guilt, made her take the folder despite herself. Inside lay copies of forms, doctor's notes, words she had never been calm enough or fluent enough to ask for. She scanned them, English translations paper-clipped to the back. Pregnancy? Estimated 8 weeks. Blunt force trauma. Spontaneous abortion. Surgical intervention. Her vision blurred. "You knew all this and didn't tell me," she whispered. "I didn't know how," he said. "Or maybe I did and I was a coward." She laughed, short and bitter. Understatement of the century. Wind tugged at her hair. The city stretched below them, oblivious. "Why now?" she asked. "Why drag me here when you already pushed me out of your house?" "Because Mira was right about one thing," he said. "The COs won't protect you as long as I'm pretending you don't matter." He stepped closer, leaving a respectful gap. "I'm not asking you to forgive me," he said. "I'm asking what you want, not what you owe, not what you're atoning for, just you." No one had asked her that in 2 years, maybe longer. She looked down at the papers in her hands, proof that she'd lost something real, not just imagined it in a fog of grief and painkillers. "I want," she said slowly, "to stop feeling like I'm haunting my own life." His throat worked. "Then stay. You just fired me." "I was wrong," he said, and the admission sounded like it cost him. "Mira was right that keeping you close puts a target on you, but sending you away puts one on me. And Minho? Because without you, that house goes back to being a mausoleum." The wind pushed her hair across her face. She didn't move to fix it. "What are you offering, Taejun?" she asked quietly. "Another job? A raise? Hush money with benefits?" "No." He exhaled, ragged. "I'm offering the truth. All of it. No more tests. No more cameras. I'll tell the board exactly who you are and what you did. I'll make immigration back off. And if the COs come for you, they come through me first." "That's not an offer," she said. "That's a declaration of war." "Maybe." A faint, humorless smile ghosted across his mouth. "But I've been running from the woman who saved my son for 2 years. I'm tired of being a coward." She studied his face. The sharp jaw, the tired eyes, the mouth that didn't know how to smile easily but was trying. "And what happens when Minho gets older and realizes I'm the reason his biological sibling never took a breath?" she asked. "What happens when he starts asking questions I can't answer without breaking?" "Then we answer them together," Taejun said. "And we let him be angry and sad and confused, because that's what real families do." Real families. The words hung in the cold air. She looked out over the city, at the lights blinking like scattered stars, at the life she tried to build from scraps and sheer stubbornness. "If I stay," she said, "it's not because I owe you, or because Minho needs me." "Then why?" he asked. She turned back to him. "Because I want to see if the scared parts of me can live in the same house as the hopeful ones. And I think maybe I can't do that alone." Something in his expression cracked open. Relief, maybe, or something close to it. "You won't be," he said. She let the folder fall closed. "No more lies?" "No more lies. And if I wake up one day and decide this place isn't good for me, then I'll drive you to the airport myself," he said. "And I'll make sure Minho understands it's not abandonment. It's just you choosing yourself." She smiled, small and fragile. "You're getting soft, Chairman Yoon." "Blame the maid," he said. And for the first time, his mouth curved into something that almost looked like a real smile. They stood there on the roof, two people bound by rain and headlights, and a child who'd somehow survived them both and let the wind carry away the last of the pretending. Epilogue. 6 months later. Minho's laughter echoed through the garden as he chased a butterfly with a net twice his size. Soraya sat on the stone bench, warm afternoon sun on her shoulders, a sketchbook balanced on her knees. She was terrible at drawing, but Minho had insisted she needed a hobby that wasn't whirring in different rooms. Taejun appeared with 2 glasses of lemonade, settling beside her without asking. It was a habit now, this quiet orbiting, the way they existed in each other's space without needing to name it. "The Seo family lawyers called again," he said. And? "And I told them if they had complaints, they could submit them in writing and wait 6 to 8 business weeks for me to care." She snorted. "Very professional." "I learned from the best." He glanced at her sketch. A lopsided stick figure she claimed was him. "That's horrifying." "It's called abstract expressionism," she said primly. "It's called a crime scene." Minho ran over, breathless, clutching a flower he'd definitely pulled from Madame Choi's carefully tended bed. "For you," he announced, shoving it at Soraya. Oh," she said. "Does Halmione know you're committing botanical theft?" "It's a gift," he insisted. "Gifts aren't stealing." Taejun ruffled his hair. "Tell that to the judge." Minho grinned, planted a kiss on Soraya's cheek, and bolted back toward the butterfly. In the quiet that followed, Taejun's hand found hers on the bench. Not possessive. Just there. "You staying?" he asked, like he still needed to check. She laced her fingers through his. "For now," she said. "Ask me again tomorrow." "I will," he promised. And somewhere in the house behind them, tucked in the back of a drawer, an ultrasound photo rested beside a new picture. Minho, Soraya, and Taejun on the cliffside, smiling like a family that had fought its way into being. Not perfect, but real. If this story grabbed you by the heart and didn't let go, don't just disappear into the algorithm. Hit that like button so more people can find Soraya and Taejun's story. Drop a comment and tell me, are you Team Soraya? Should she protect her heart and leave? Are you Team Taejun? Does he deserve a second chance after everything? Or tell me the one moment that hit you hardest, the crosswalk, the rooftop, or Minho's "everyone leaves" breakdown. And if you're craving more slow burn, high stakes, emotionally devastating romance between unlikely people in impossible situations, smash that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Because the next story might be even darker, even sweeter, and even more dangerous. Your girl's got more tales to tell. Don't miss them.